Zabien Brown is a high-ceiling defender with the raw physical tools and abilities to develop into a shutdown man-to-man corner for the NFL draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Damian Parson. That's Keith Sanchez. And today's episode, guys, we are breaking down Alabama cornerback Zabien Brown. We're going to give you the grade that we have for him at the end of the show, talk about some pros, talk about the comps, when it comes down to the NFL, the NFL draft, talk about the concerns with the young man's game that we looking forward to seeing him improve on during the 2026 college football season. But we got to kick it off, as always, with the pros and talk about the good things, Keith, when it comes down to Zabien Brown, the young man that was targeted 53 times last year, allowed 29 receptions, had 5 PBUs, 2 interceptions. He's listed at 6 foot even, 195 pounds. Keith, what stood out to you about Alabama's number one corner going into the 2026 college football season?
Yeah, I think what stood out was the ball production, right? I think he had 2 pick sixes, I believe, on the season, right? One big time situation against Tennessee. And that was a big time deal, right? And so to be able to return it for the touchdown, that was a huge situation. But then also, I think that the ball production sometimes comes via the physicality that he plays with. This is a guy that wants to play physical. He's a hands-on guy. He's listed at 192 pounds. That's something I believe, right? I believe he's 190 plus pounds. He wants to play physical early on. He wants to disrupt releases, to disrupt timing, and just play as a physical cornerback. So that was the 2 things that stood out, was that, he had ball production on the football, right? Being able to get the football, create turnovers for his defense, things like that. But then also watching his play style, this is a guy that wants to get in your face. He's going to want to play physical, press man-to-man, get hands-on, jam, things like that, disrupt the route stem for the wide receiver.
Yeah, no, 100%, Keith. That was one of the things I put him as a man coverage specialist. Like this young man, whether it's like you said, trying to reroute and get hands-on, he knows how to play man-to-man. He's patient. He stays square. He's not somebody that we see those guys like 2-hand jam, be super aggressive and get off balance and things like that. That's not him. I love how patient and how technically sound he is, but also he can soft press. Similar, we talked about this yesterday. I believe it was Keith with what's the young man's name? Ellis Robinson, right? That ability to mirror and soft press and win with your feet. I see that exact same thing when it comes down to Zabien Brown. He is so good about winning with his feet and really putting the wide receiver in situations where he's not giving you anything, right? He's square. He's playing right to his leverage. I just love kind of watching him be able to put pressure on receivers in that regard. And then at the same time too, Keith, like I'll say this, like, I mean, so far, we talk about Ellis Robinson too, he's a pretty solid open field tackler too. Like this dude will come up and wrap up, and he's not afraid to get into the action or anything like that. So like just watching him, Keith, I think this is a guy that I'm excited for him in 2026 because I want to see him live on that island from the start of the season to the end, because I think this is a young man that absolutely could be a lockdown number one corner in college football.
Yeah, the physicality part, that was the other part I was going to get to, was the tackling, right? He's a guy as a defensive coordinator. You can draw in cornerback run support, right? Because he's going to step up on the sideline, on the perimeter. He's going to stick his face in there, and there's a high chance he's going to make the play, right? And you even translate that to even when you get those 2x1, 3x1 sets, right? And when they're doing, tunnels, wide receiver screens, quick screens, just different things like that, he can play on the perimeter. And that what Georgia kind of became famous for, right? Because they publicized it, those tackling drills on the perimeter with, instituting the wide receivers in the corners, almost their version of the Oklahoma drill, right?
Yeah.
But he's able to shed blockers and then make the play. So I think his physicality, DP, it goes into a wide part, because I even think that his physicality shows, and this is the part, and we'll get into it in a little bit in the concerns, but his physicality goes into even when the ball is in the air. And he's playing through the wide receiver. There are times where he's still kind of hands-on, which, you know, it disrupts the wide receivers, but it gives him a shot to kind of still be in position to make a play on the football.
No, 100%. I mean, Keith, I think it was the Auburn game. I was watching them against Cam Coleman and how he fared against Cam. Like he had some reps where he had Cam in jail. Like he locked Cam up. And I was just like, this is good on good, like great on great in the situation. Watching the young, talented wide receiver versus a corner, whether it was press man coverage. I think Cam tried to speed release outside. He arm barred him, squeezed into the sideline, and basically made and locked them down. There's another, and this is a guy, you know, from a coverage standpoint, he gives you the versatility of playing press man in terms of bump and run, as you talked about with the aggressiveness and the strength and everything else. He can also mirror you and play soft press coverage, but then he plays off coverage too, and he plays it well with 1-inch steps. He's very calculated in his process, very patient, and he's got ability to plant and drive. Like I think we talked about with Ellis Robinson. This is another guy who might have some teach tape reps of those combine drills, of the W drill. And I didn't look to see if, you know, Coach Brown would agree if he was a T stepper or not. I didn't jot that down in my notes, Keith. But like just that back pedal, plant the foot, drive downhill, right? And for those who, you know, to explain why to our listeners, Keith, why that's important. When you're playing off coverage, if that guy breaks on a slant or in breaking route or whatever the case may be, even a hitch, you got to be able to drive out of there, out of your break, and get downhill quickly to meet the ball at the receiver. Hey, if you get there early, that's a pick, right? It's a pick six. If you're not there early, your own time, that's a PBU, and it's a pass breakup. That's why being able to click and close and drive with acceleration out of your break as a DB is so important, especially when you're playing off coverage and zones.
Yeah, no, in DP, I have to be honest. When I see the T step, I just think injury. Like it makes me nervous. Just turning that foot outward like that. So I'm definitely the bicycle playing drive person. The T step just it concerns me. It concerns me. But with Zabien DP, I also want to say this, that I think he's a fairly smart football player. There were times in different coverages and stuff like that I thought he did a good job. He was playing zone, reading the quarterback's eyes, and allowing that to carry him to the football to make plays on the football. So when I was jotting down, one of the last things that I jotted down was IQ. I thought he had a fairly decent IQ, and I know you say he's a press man, you know, player in your opinion, but I think there's some zone tendencies with him too, that he can play zone and mix it up and see some different things.
I mean, I think he had was it against Oklahoma? He might have had, was it a pick six against Oklahoma against John Matinham in the playoffs? I think it was a playoff game. Where, to your point, that the zone eyes, reading, and then that processing quickness to understand where the ball is going, where's the quarterback eyes taking them, which I'll talk about on the flip side as well. He does a good job reading when he's in off coverage or zone. He does showcase the ability to read the quarterback's eyes and let the quarterback take him to the route that he's trying to get to. And then he jumped it. He jumped the route, interception. I think same thing against Tennessee. You know what I mean? If as a quarterback, if you let the ball hang a little bit too much when you're thrown in his direction and he's playing off, it's a chance that he's going to break on that ball and take it back for a touchdown. That's what I really like about him too, Keith, as you mentioned with the 2 interceptions going for touchdowns. I like a receiver that can break and then take it to the house, right? If you can make a break on it early, that's going to optimize your opportunity to end up putting points on the board. And as we all know, Keith, the game is to outscore the opponent. If we can score, my offense is on the sideline, then we're doing really good for ourselves at this moment.
Yep, I agree 100%. DP, let's do this, man. We talked about the pros, right? The highlights, the top parts of Zabien Brown's game. Let's talk about the concerns, right? What are the areas that he needs to improve on as a cornerback heading into the 2026 college football season? Let's discuss that coming up next.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We talk about mental health more openly now, but asking for help can still feel hard. And BetterHelp's latest research confirms it. BetterHelp's 2026 State of Stigma report surveyed 2,000 Americans and revealed that 85% of Americans believe getting support is wise, yet 74% says society discourages people from doing so. BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform with over 30,000 therapists globally and has helped more than 6 million people connect with support. Through a short questionnaire, BetterHelp does the initial match so people can focus on their therapy goals. And if the match isn't right, users can switch to a different therapist from tailored recommendations. Sometimes it's not a huge moment. It's just making these conversations feel normal and reminding people that reaching out for support doesn't have to carry judgment. Don't let stigma stand in the way of support. Start therapy with BetterHelp. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. Breaking down the concerns for Alabama star cornerback Zabien Brown, Keith, the young man with 6 foot, 195 pounds. What did you see on tape that stood out to you? Like, I would like to see this address, or is it something that, like we talked about Ellis Robinson yesterday, maybe frame, like, you know, for him it was frame, not something he could change. You're not getting longer and taller. You can't dictate that. What were some things that kind of concerned you a little bit on tape with Zabien Brown?
Yeah, no, and I started to get into it a little bit in the first segment, DP. It's definitely the handsiness. That stuff is not gonna fly in the NFL. And also, too, you're gonna be dealing with high caliber athletes, DP. So you know, it'll be different getting physical with a AJ Brown and getting physical with, you know, these big bodied wide receivers versus, you know, some of the wide receivers you may see in college football. So the handsiness and how that can, if you do it against big wide receivers, you could potentially lose the rep. And then secondly, if you do it past the 5 yards, it being able to convert into a penalty. And I thought that there were times, DP, where his hands came in a sense of panic throughout the route. Like, he had to feel like he was grabby. He had to be grabby because I don't know, in his mind, maybe he felt as though separation was there, right? And he was just trying to get back in phase or get the wide receiver back to him. So the hands part, I think he definitely has to clean up. In press situations, I obviously understand using your hands. I always say press with your feet first and then hands. I think he's going to have to, if I was him, to balance myself, I would work on their drills that you can do as a cornerback, to where you're pressing, but you kind of have your hands behind your back to make sure you don't use them, right? And just work on his footwork, because if he does that and improves his footwork and doesn't concentrate so much on his hands, I think he'd be a much more balanced player working through press.
Yeah, no, he does, like, especially mid rep, like, you know, once they engage downfield, he'll definitely make contact. And in college, that's why I feel like this is an overarching conversation. They need to fix this stuff. Like the game that, like, you don't look at college basketball like, man, the rules are so different in college basketball than it is in the NBA. Like, you know what I mean? They might not call, like, the NBA don't call walks and stuff. College might call travels and stuff like that. But the NFL is like, okay, we got illegal contact. That, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you touch a receiver past 5 yards, we throw a flag. That's not, they don't call it in college like that. You know what I mean? Like, they let corners be physical. It feels like, I'm just calling it this. Feels like college is the grown man's game, Keith. Because they let these guys be physical. They let them hit. Now, don't get me wrong. Then again, there's the targeting thing. The NFL just give you 15 yards. In college, they get you thrown up for a half. You know what I mean? For the rest of the game, and maybe half of the next game, depending on when you got hit with it, right? So I just wish the rules for the two sports actually overlap, because it's the same freaking sport. It's football, but nonetheless, I just wanted to get that off my chest because it drives me nuts. But yeah, I think that goes to when you see these corners that are handsy, it's because they don't get called for it in college. It's like, yeah, no, play physical, be, jostle for position and stuff. In the NFL, not so much. You know what I mean? The NFL let the receiver chicken wing you and shove you out of bounds and to catch the ball, and be like, that's a clean play, right? So definitely want to see him, because he does. I'll say one thing: he does do a good job using, like, the chest to chest technique, especially on, like, fade balls and stuff like that. But you got to be wary of are you the one engaging in hand-to-hand combat? Or are you the counter? Because, like, if the receiver's the one,
I was wondering if that's how his interception came against Tennessee. I think playing chest to chest, trying to maybe playing a fade, but I can't remember. I can't remember 100%.
I think it was.
I agree with you though that you need to make sure that you're not the one being engaging, right? And especially in the NFL where they're super tough on the defensive backs, where you're more like it is more likely than not you're going to get called a penalty, right? Like they don't see offensive pass interference; they always see defensive pass interference.
Only time they see it is if it's a rub route, if it's
Yeah,
a pick
right.
they'll call it for that. But if you shove the cornerback, they don't trip at all. I think the other things that stood out to me, Keith, he's got a tendency, which again I praise him for it. I said it's a double-edged sword. He's got a tendency to peek in the backfield when he's playing off coverage, where I see his eyes in the backfield at the quarterback. I think it was Jalen Ramsey when he was with the Rams teaching the young corners during like training camp. He was like, hey, if you're watching the quarterback, 9 times out of 10, you watching him complete passes on you because your eyes are on your target. And I was like, that's a very true and good statement, Jalen, because you see that ability. Like, yes, I want you to read the quarterback's eyes and see where he's taking you and see where he's going. But in the NFL, Keith, because we're talking about him as an NFL draft prospect, what happens when you face an Aaron Rodgers at 41 years old, 42, however old he is, and he's got time in the pocket to look you off, you know what I mean? And then pump you, like, you know, get the pump action off the pump fake, and now you triggering downhill on the sluggo, and now it's an 80-yard touchdown, right?
Well, I believe that happened against Wisconsin, I believe.
I think so.
I think it was the Wisconsin game. He got hit with a little bit of a double move, and they were up, but I think they were up like 2-3 touchdowns. It might have been more than that.
I think that ball was underthrown. I don't think it was a touchdown, but it was a big play.
Yeah, it was underthrown. He might have even broke it up, but it was severely underthrown because the wide receiver had like 5+ yards of separation.
He was wide open.
Yeah, he was wide open. But like you said, it's just to that point of, and then you have to fix that in the NFL because if one team does it and see they have success on you, they're going to keep doing it until you don't have success. And if you're giving up big plays, DP, that's how you find yourself on the bench, right? In the NFL. You if the defensive coordinator can't trust you not to give up a big time play, unless there's other just bad cornerbacks on the team, that's how you find yourself on the bench. You cannot give up the big play. They don't mind losing death by 1,000 cuts, but giving up explosive plays defensively is a big deal. So the
3-play drives is not it. You can't have three-play drives for a touchdown.
Yeah, can't have that.
And I think Keith, because and for the listeners, guys, why we're harping on this is because if he doesn't fix it, it starts to push him in the feast or famine waters, where it's like, okay, he's aggressive, he's triggering downhill. Yes, he gets a pick, right? But then what happens when you don't read it correctly? And there again, you watching Joe Burrow, like you think Joe Burrow's not going to look at you, like watch your film and realize, hey, when he's in off coverage, he's looking in the backfield a lot. So cool, I'm gonna look at you. I'm gonna look to Jamar Chase. I'm gonna get you to trigger downhill, and I'm gonna throw the over route to my tight end because you left that void open, right? Like I'm going to use my eyes to manipulate you. We always talk about that looking off safeties. You can look off corners too. Don't put yourself in a position where where you can be feast or famine, where it's either there's no in between. It's either good or you're getting beat down the field for an explosive play because you're reckless or you're undisciplined in terms of your drive and your trigger downhill. So I want to see him not be so prone to looking in the backfield at the quarterback. Or if you do it, look at him, see where his eyes are, and get back to your assignment, especially if you're in zone. Because I think that's my thing with him is I want to see him get that. I don't think he has a full natural feel of playing zone, Keith, where it's like he's super comfortable. I think he is a more man-to-man corner, but I think there's upside for him in zone, but he's got to get that kind of feel for space and feel for route concepts and passing off and staying to your landmark. And then the last thing, he doesn't play in the nickel a lot. And in the NFL, you know that's the thing with corners is if you're a number one and you're facing Justin Jefferson, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, you got to typically have to travel a lot of times in the NFL. We see Pat Surtain. Like, it depends on the scheme, right? Like, J.C. Horn doesn't have to travel as much because they play a lot of cover 3, a lot of zone in Carolina, right? With Evero's defense. And they got Mike Jackson on the other side, so they feel like, hey, we don't have to travel. Patrick Surtain travels. You know what I mean? Like, he'll move side to side. He'll go into the nickel sometimes, stuff like that. He doesn't play a lot in the nickel. And I would like to see more of it to see how comfortable or how uncomfortable he is playing it on a bigger basis in terms of snap share.
Yeah, no, I agree with DP. You know, my favorite part is coming up, man. When we reveal the draft grade, and I don't know, do you have draft comp? I mean, you have NFL comps for Zabien Brown yet? For me, it was difficult. For me, it's difficult.
It was difficult for me too.
Yeah, let's get into the conversation. Let's go ahead and drop this draft grade for Zabien Brown heading into 2026 college football season. Let's discuss it coming up next.
Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. And thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America. It's all because of you, our everydayers. And you can go to lockedonnfldraft.supercast.com to become an everydayer and join the Everydayer Club, where you can communicate with myself and Keith in our Discord, our private Discord channel. We'll be dropping clips in there. You could ask us questions, whatever you want to do. You can hop in there and join. Again, go to lockedonnfldraft.supercast.com to join today. All right, Keith, explaining the grade for 6 foot, 195-pound corner out of Alabama, a guy who we've given praise to. We've critiqued this game. What grade do you have for the young man?
Yeah, I gave him a second round grade, DP. I believe as of now, he's a guy that I would draft top of the second round. Going and comparing draft by draft, right? And I think we mentioned him on yesterday's podcast. If I had to take him or Colton Hood, I would take him. I would take him. I think he's a more explosive athlete, and a more well-rounded athlete also in the playmaking ability that he's showed thus far through his career. So I think that the first 10 to 15 picks at this moment, I would take him in the first 10, 15 picks of the second round. So I have a second round grade on him.
Yeah, I have a top of the second round grade on him as well, Keith. I could late first, early second. I could see a team wanting to get him in late first, like we saw with Chris Johnson out of San Diego State going to the Miami Dolphins at the end of the first round and things like that. I could definitely see a team wanting to get that young, just talented, toolsy corner. But again, man cover skills are there. You know, when he's patient, he can stay square. He can be technically sound, and we know he can take the ball away. And not only take the ball away, he can take the ball away, and he has the speed to take it the distance. Well, I think the Tennessee pick six was like a 99-yard, 100-yard pick six, or whatever the case may be. I think he caught it at the goal line and whatnot in man-to-man coverage. So we know the good things that he brings. Want to see him just clean up some of the things as we talked about just a minute ago. Just clean up the eyes, right? The eye discipline of reading the quarterback, you know, in zone and off coverage, things like that. I prefer guys to be aggressive so I can then walk you back a little bit than trying to get you to be aggressive. It's just, if you're not aggressive, you're just not really going to be aggressive, right? Like, it just is what it is. So I prefer him to be aggressive. Just got to tone that down a little bit in terms of his trigger downhill and things like that. And again, I want to see him. Guys, we want to see him. No, I do want to see him in the slot a little bit. Like, are you a scheme versatile or positional versatile guy? Because if a cornerback room has more outside guys than inside guys, somebody got to play nickel. So who is it? Is it you, or is it, safety? Who we putting in the nickel, right? So definitely want to see that with him. I got that late first, early second. I think this guy that should run fast in the 40, Keith. I think his footwork in the drill should look good when we get to the combine, and he decides to work out and everything. But he definitely has some things to work on. Comp-wise, I was struggling. I'm not going to lie. Keith, I can't lie. I was struggling with trying to figure out a comp for this young man. I was like, man.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to have one. I don't have one, DP, that's great. I think you can say in a sense of the fact of these were good college prospects, but NFL careers didn't necessarily pan out. So I'll be kind of doing this young man a disservice. But I'll discuss a couple of them that came to mind. Tyson Campbell was a guy that came to mind for me. And then the other one, and I really like this young man, and I thought he had every reason to be successful and just didn't pan out in the NFL. Kaiir Elam. From a few years ago was another one. I thought that they were all similar statures, like right around that 6 foot, 190-pound type of players. Both had, all kind of had lapses. They were physical players, but also had lapses in technique at times, right? That could have led to penalties. And then also, this is something we didn't discuss with Zabien Brown. What type of athlete you think he is? As far as 40-time explosiveness, like, do you put him in the elite tier? Do you think he's a good athlete? Where does that fall for you? On that spectrum?
Yeah, I think he's a good athlete. I'll say I think he's going to hit the 4.4s.
Yeah.
Depending on whether it's low or high, we'll see. I think he can. I think he can run. I think he's quick twitch and everything. I wouldn't be shocked if his like L drill and 20-yard shuttle and stuff were good. I think he changes directions fairly well also. So I definitely think he's a good athlete, Keith. Elite, I don't know if I'll classify him as an elite athlete. You know what I mean? Like that 1%er. I don't think he's that type of athlete at corner, but I think he's a really good athlete and everything. And I think I was looking up size comps, and then like the name that came to mind was like, remember Bradley Roby? I think he used to be with the Denver Broncos years ago. And everything. He came in like he's shorter, like 5'11". I think he was like 195 when he came out and everything. He ran like 4.39 and everything with a 38-inch vert. But like Roby, we saw reps of Roby playing outside, Roby played inside, things like that. If Zabien comes in at 6 foot even, actual 195, almost 200 pounds, he's definitely going to be on the outside. Like I think he's going to feel like he's going to have the body type and the height and the athleticism to where he could play on the outside. And then that spatial awareness, that's why I said like the zone stuff, I want to see him improve, because I feel like man-to-man spatial awareness, he's much better in terms of, okay, you want to take outside release, that's fine. I'm a soft pressure, I'm going to mirror you. Hey, I'm going to arm bar you. I know that I got the sideline. That's my best friend. That's my help defender. And I'm going to squeeze you and I'm going to eliminate any type of space. I think against Cam Coleman, they tried to throw a back shoulder fade to Cam versus him, and he was right in the hip pocket, right? Created the PBU, wasn't giving up anything, things like that. He's got that type of skill set to be a lockdown one-on-one man-to-man corner. But in the NFL, you do have to play zone. Teams are playing zone at a higher rate earlier in the downs. I think like 70, maybe 80%. Don't quote me on those numbers, but I think that's kind of where that is, like first through third, or first and second down especially. And then third downs, they try to man up and like limit, any run after catch opportunities and stuff like that. But you got to be able to play both in the NFL nowadays. You got to play zone and man. I want to see him just get better with his zone coverage overall. That's going to really help him reach his ceiling as an NFL. I think he's a high ceiling prospect, Keith.
Yeah, no, and I'm going to wrap it up with this. This is what I thought in regards to him. I thought that he was more mentally comfortable in man coverage, but I thought his tools and his play style leans towards him being more like playing more zone coverage, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I thought cover 2, some cover 3, just because he likes to be physical early on in a rep. And, typically in zone, especially cover 2, right, you got a safety over top of you. And then in zone, right, like it just gives you more time. And then potentially you got a safety at top, and he won't be on. Obviously, he's not on top of you, but you have help, right? If you on the backside of a 3-by-1, you miss with that press, you miss with that jam, that strike up the band, right?
Right.
So I just thought that because he was a risk taker at times. I thought just in how physical he would be. If you miss with it, basically you just got to make sure you hit on it. So that was the weird part. I thought he was mentally more comfortable in man coverage, but I thought that his play style lent him to be more safe, or lent itself to being a zone coverage corner.
Yeah, definitely got to clean up. Can't be super aggressive. Well, pick your spots, pick your moments, pick your players, right? Like you get in the league trying to be physical, super physical against T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Don't really feel like that's going to be a situation that works out best for you, as those are bigger, stronger type of receivers. You're probably going to lean on that mirror technique that he's so good at, staying square, letting your feet be able to match and flow with the receiver. Then you trying to get up there, 2-hand jam, or be super physical, because even though you're 195, those dudes are 215 plus, and and they invite that type of physicality. You're gonna match up with guys in the NFL that absolutely. Cortland Sutton's another one. You don't want to get up there against 6'4", 225, 230, and be like, yeah, I'm about to reroute you. Like, no, mirror him, stay in the hip pocket, make it a tight window thing. I think coaching is going to be a big thing for him, Keith, going in the NFL, or getting to the right scheme where the coach is like, hey, let's pick our spots with that zone, whatever we're running. Just be on your P's and Q's and play to your game. High ceiling guy, Keith. I think he could. I wouldn't be shocked if he tweaks some things. He's in the middle of round 1.
I agree. He definitely has opportunity for that. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast out by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at the talent code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. On tomorrow's show, Keith, we're going to break down Texas Tech corner, a guy that I don't think a lot of people have ever heard of, Bryce Pollock. We're going to break down his game. That was a guy during the 2026 draft cycle. People, a lot of draft nerds, I would say, out there really started to pay attention to him because of his performance versus our boy Jordan Tyson when they played Arizona State earlier in the 2025 college football season. We're going to break down the pros, the cons, and explain the grade on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow. The Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.